Sandwiches made with lean meat and low-fat cheese are considered a healthy choice. So West Morgan didn't even look at the amount of sodium listed on the
I
labels.
probably generally don't think about salt nearly as much as a lot of the other things like, fat and calories and stuff like that.
Salt in food makes it tastier and extends shelf life. But salty food is also known to increase blood pressure. And high blood pressure can lead to stroke, heart attack, and other serious health problems. The US Food and Drug Administration recently announced a 10-year plan to reduce sodium in packaged and restaurant food, following suggestions from a scientific advisory panel. Processed and restaurant foods are the biggest offenders, but the FDA has not announced any legal limits on salt in these foods. Dr. Bob Rubin was on the panel. He favors slow and gradual change because he says drastic steps will not work.
It just simply won't work for a variety of reasons. Number one, consumers have gotten accustomed to the salty taste in food. And if you drop it by the amount that we eventually will drop it by, which is roughly 1/3, consumers are going to say, oh, this tastes terrible.
Americans consume on average almost 3,500 milligrams of sodium per day, about 50% more than they need, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Doctors say people who are 40 years and older or have high blood pressure should not eat more than 1,500 milligrams a day. The CDC says other adults should not consume more than a teaspoon of salt a day, about 2,300 milligrams. Many Americans concede that the salt problem should be tackled.
I think it's a preventative measure. I think it's a really good idea preventatively for the health of Americans as a whole.
Eventually, people adapt to taste, and if they need to have food with less salt in it, they will get used to it. So I think it's a good idea.
Those who study this field say the excess consumption of sodium is a problem mostly in developed countries. But as people in developing nations move to cities and fast food chains open worldwide, high sodium consumption could soon become global. In the United States, the federal government and the food industry are trying to work together to reduce the amount of salt in food.
This has to be a partnership among individuals, industry, and government. And individuals clearly need to learn more about foods that are high in sodium that may not taste salty. And again, bread is a classic example. Most people would not consider bread to be salty, yet bread has an enormous amount of sodium. Cheese is generally not considered to be salty to taste, but it has high amounts of sodium. And consumers need to become label readers.
Skeptics say cutting down on salt will be an uphill task. Habits have to change, and the food industry will have to come up with tasty but healthier food that still stays fresh. Vidushi Sinha, VOA News.